Hey everyone, it's Theresa here and welcome back to my channel. In today's process video, I'm going to share with you a full process for creating this mini album. It's going to be a little bit longer than I normally do for my process videos, so I hope you'll get settled in and have some fun watching this come together. So recently I created this mini album for the Traci Reed Creative Team. I'm using the On The Go and Going Slow digital collections from the Traci Reed shop. Of course, I'll have all of those products linked below, and I'll also link the original blog post. We did, several members from the creative team created their own versions of mini albums, and so if you're into creating little quick fun albums like this, you'll enjoy seeing that blog post and get some fun inspiration. And so first, a couple of notes about the foundation for this album. I went through and selected some of my favorite pattern papers from these collections and printed them back to back to create this notebook. And the reason I kept it in a notebook format is really because I'm going to put it in my larger Project Life album. This is a sort of micro album of a trip that Alan and I took a couple of months ago to the Aquarium at Atlantic Beach in North Carolina. And I did a full Project Life spread in my album, but I also wanted to include more details about the aquarium itself. We had a great time there. It was a beautiful facility, made lots of wonderful fishy, swimmy friends. And so this just seemed like a great way to incorporate more photos, but not take up a lot of bulk. And so the whole idea behind this album was very little bulk. So I created a formula. Everything is a pattern paper and then a photo and a couple of embellishments from the kit that I've printed out, and then just a few physical embellishments. And so we'll see as the process goes along how I embellished with physical embellishments for this album. So what I'm doing right now is trimming down all the photos, and my thought process in printing the photos and deciding what sizes to use is basically to keep it 4x6 or less. And so the majority of the photos in this album are 4x6 or 3x4, somewhere in that measurement with borders. And there are two exceptions. One is the aquarium itself. The photo, I spread that across the entire album itself. And then there's also one photo that I printed directly on the background paper itself when I was printing the pattern papers. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do that, and after I saw how it turned out, I wish I had done it more throughout the album. But the paper that I'm working with is this HP heavyweight project paper. I'll link it in my blog post. And it kind of gives, it's a very matte paper and it's lighter weight. It flies through the silhouette, but it also gives everything just a little distressed finish. It's just muted. If you're looking to print bright colors, I wouldn't use this paper. But for this collection, because it already has this kind of vintage vibe, it worked out really well. And I really liked how it feels in the notebook. Again, it helps just keep some of that bulk down. Sometimes when you print on cardstock and then you fold it and you try to sew it together like this, it gets really thick and bulky and kind of hard to fold. So this paper was a really nice weight to do that with. So once I have all of the photos trimmed down, I went ahead and adhered them all into the album. Then I'm going to embellish these pages. And again, I'm keeping with a formula here, and it's basically just a little sprig of flowers from the digital kit tucked in somewhere, a word strip or a stamped sentiment or both, and a little bit of journaling on most of the pages, not every page. And then I also have a couple of physical embellishments from Cocoa Daisy, and the stamp sets that I'm using as well are from Cocoa Daisy. And some of the pages, you'll notice I'm doing just a single photo, like this one where the photo ended up on the right hand side, and on the left hand side is just kind of a filler page. And those are always fun because you can just embellish them. Again, I kept it very minimal, just a tag, a couple of die cuts or stickers, or sometimes I used the little word strips as well. And you could, of course, add journaling on those pages. You could write directly on the pages if you're more of a some people write more than I do or journal more than I do. So that's definitely a great space for this. And I think that the album itself measures about 5 by 8. So it gives you a nice bit of real estate on each of the spreads. And I really like that. Another thing that I used throughout the album as well are these little shipping tags. That was just another way to get some white space onto the pages, because obviously when you're working with pattern papers, you've already got a nice bit of color and movement and repetition and activity on the layout from the get-go. And I love that. It's something that I was intentional about, and the reason why I chose these pattern papers to do this with. But then it becomes the challenge of where do you journal and how do you create space where your eye can rest. And so the white shipping tags are one way that I did that. Another way is to print your photos with borders around them. That helps them kind of stand out from that pattern paper, and so they don't get lost up against those pattern papers. And ultimately, it just made it a whole lot easier to pull these layouts together really quickly. I think there's some great ideas in this album, just showing how to lay these pages out in a very uncomplicated, it is what it is kind of way, and that's a lot of fun. By uncomplicating the process, it makes it a lot of fun just to pull it together, and you don't have to overthink anything. Nothing in this album was overthought, really and truly. Here's another one of the shipping tags here, and of course I've added a bit of twine to each one, just to add a little bit. This one actually was one of the tags in the digital kit. And again, just adding a little floral embellishment, using a couple of the butterflies. It's kind of fun, even though this was an aquarium visit, and so normally you might think, well, wouldn't you want to use like blue kits or fishy kits to go? That's kind of a funny way to say that. Wouldn't you want to use that kind of a collection? But it was actually a nice contrast to bring in pinks and greens. I don't even think that there really is any blue in this kit, and so it kind of makes the water photos pop a little bit. And it was also an interesting thing about this facility and about this place is that it wasn't all blue either in terms of the decor. They did that. The interior design was more earth colors and earth tones, and then they let the blue of the water be the blue element in the building itself. So I was taking inspiration from the space that we were in. And it's something that I encourage you when you're traveling around and when you're visiting places to take cues from those environments. What I know of architecture and interior design is that they're very thought out in terms of showing you, helping you to have a specific experience in that space. And we can carry that into our albums and into our layouts by paying attention to how are they bringing that experience to you, and then repeating that experience through the layout itself and through our own creativity. And I think that's kind of a fun way to approach it, a fun way to think about being in these spaces and observing what is going on and how they're achieving the experience that you're having. It's really fun to watch. It's part of my creative brain that just never stops. So here's the layout with the full page photo. It doesn't quite go vertically full page, but it goes across the whole spread. And this is in the center of the aquarium is the main tank. And one thing that I loved was that there's a school of fish that live inside this tank, and they just go around and around and around the circle together. And it was a really cool photo there. And I just added a couple of just two little tiny, very simple clusters at the top left and the lower right using stamps and a little banner, and left it at that. And so letting that photo stand by itself. For this page, check that out. Do you remember these banners? I used them in an entire layout a couple of weeks ago. And so I still had some of those left over, and I incorporated them here as well. And I decided just to create this sideways banner, actually. And the purpose that it has in the page design is that it absolutely directs your eye into this dramatic photo. The photo itself is in the entryway of the aquarium, and so they raised the roof in this area and they've built this waterfall. And so it's extremely tall and dramatic and just big giant rocks, and it's just a really beautiful space to be in. There actually, while we were there was a couple that were taking some of their wedding photos there. So definitely a beautiful space to be in. And so I wanted that photo to be sort of, obviously, it's going to be the focal point of this spread. And I kept it simple again. The banners are more of pattern and texture and that serve a specific purpose. And then I'm going to write my journaling directly onto this page. And I'm not really going to worry about whether it's on a tag or on a white background. It's just going directly on the pattern paper. And the pattern paper I chose for this is sort of like a yellow gingham, buffalo plaid kind of pattern. So it's not a very busy pattern or anything. And the other benefit is it has lines. So it kept my handwriting a little bit neater. And then another fun thing was I'm imitating stitching here and using this old Becky Higgins Project Life stamp. If you ever ask me what is the product that you use the most in your layouts besides adhesive, it's probably that line stamp. But I used it to create the appearance of a seam across those banners. So that was kind of fun. It was kind of a fun way to make it look like stitching. So on the next page here, this is one of the pages that has two photos. So one on the upper left hand and one on the lower right hand. Pretty standard, pretty typical way of handling photos and embellishments for me. And then again, tucking a die cut underneath the photo using a little bit of stamping. And so I did want to say something that I've been loving recently is grabbing, whenever I'm working on a layout or a project like this, to go ahead and pull 4 or 5 stamp sets all at once and pull from all of those stamp sets to give myself more choices and to encourage myself to use them more, to incorporate them more, and to find creative ways to use them on my page. And so that's been a lot of fun. And my terms and conditions that I give myself is that I only have to use black ink. I think it can be a lot of fun to pull in different ink colors if you're inspired to do that and you want to. And I think that that's awesome. But I already had a lot of color on these pages already with the pattern papers. So keeping the ink black sort of helps it stand out on the page, and it also creates that every page needs a little black and white, and so using black ink definitely helps that to be the little touch of black on every page. And it works, and it also stands in contrast. Remember me talking about the physical embellishments that I'm using on this page? Just a very, very few physical embellishments, and one of them is these foam words from Cocoa Daisy. And so the black stamping, the black ink that I used for the stamps is in contrast to the white foam letters. And that's kind of cool. It kind of worked out. I don't know that I was intentional about that necessarily, but seeing it come to life actually makes a lot of sense. It's probably one of those intuitive decisions that I made that I wasn't really aware that I was making it at the time. So now you can take that idea and roll with it and be intentional about it in your projects. There's another shipping tag going down here. And again, the same formula, some flowers, a couple of butterflies here, and just making an effort to use these beautiful stickers and die cuts in the kit, but also to keep it not really minimalist. I'm not gonna claim to be minimalist in any way, shape, or form, but to keep it to a minimum in order to simplify the process and in order to keep the process easier to go along. I think all in all, it probably took me about 3 hours to create this whole album from print to finished album, which isn't bad really. And I think there's probably about, I'll have to count, I think there's probably about 10 to 12 photos included in this album, which is a great number. And just a fun way to pull an element from a week or from a trip or from an event, to pull one specific element from that and highlight more photos of it. This would also be a great way, if you're not into December daily or October daily, this would be such a fun way to do a December album or a Christmas album or a Halloween album, and it not take a lot of time or effort even. And the end result becomes this cohesive album that takes you on a journey through the experience itself. The last page here, we're coming down to the end, is just one of the smaller aquariums, and they had these beautiful round windows that allowed you to see into the water, and it was such a kind of relaxing experience watching these fish just move so effortlessly through the water. And so I did a little bit of stamping here and then kind of left it. You'll notice the last page is the vellum that was also in the front, and that kind of wraps up the whole album. One thing I am going to do, and I've learned this from my friend Meg, and she always goes back over her layouts and adds a few more details. And one thing I love about that, oops, I made an oopsie. One thing I love about that in her process is that she takes that opportunity to use up a couple of more supplies, but also to unify the whole project. And so what I'm going to do, I actually just needed, I just needed one more little floral embellishment there. So went and grabbed that and just cut it out real fast here. But then I'm going to go through and add these enamel dots. And I had started at the beginning of the album and wasn't really sure if I wanted to use these enamel dots or not. And so in the end, I did go back and added those in some different places. These are from Cocoa Daisy as well. And they just added a little tiny bit of sparkle. So you'll get to see me go through and add those. And then just a little flip through here, so you can see the whole album all together. And so I hope that you will check out the blog post that goes along with this video. There are more detailed photos for you that, of course, you can save for your own inspiration. You can pin those on Pinterest, and I will have all the links down below for that. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. And let me know in the comments down below what your favorite page was. I would love to hear from you. And I will see you back here again soon. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.